President Obama held his final press conference Wednesday at the White House. He used the appearance to reassure the American people as Donald Trump prepares to take office.
I believe in this country. I believe in the American people. I believe that people are more good than bad. I believe tragic things happen. I think there's evil in the world. But I think that at the end of the day, if we work hard and if we're true to those things in us that feel true and feel right, that the world gets a little better each time. At my core, I think we're going to be okay. We just have to fight for it. We have to work for it and not take it for granted.
Jon Allen is a columnist for Roll Call. He's in our Washington bureau. All right, so John, President Obama tried to convey a message of hope in his final news conference. What do you think he was trying to do there?
Well, number one, it didn't sound as aspirational or optimistic as his campaign stump speeches do, and his conclusion that he thinks we're going to be okay. I mean, I can't imagine an American president having less urgency or less conviction about something like that. What if the president had said, we're not going to be okay? This is the bare minimum that he could muster for this particular event. And he basically restated his own core values, did not really address what's going to come with President Trump and what he thinks that will actually bring.
So how do you think that impacts the incoming president, what we just heard from President Obama?
I don't think it's particularly helpful to Donald Trump, but I also don't think it's hurtful. There's been a lot of questioning of the legitimacy of President Trump, and President Obama has not engaged in that. And I think that's an important thing and something that he set out to do from the very first, to make sure that he wasn't doing anything to undermine the smooth transfer of power within our democracy or to take away from the legitimacy of the incoming president, even though it's a guy who spent a good deal of time trying to undermine President Obama's legitimacy.
Yeah. Well, as you know, John, 4 Trump nominees face lawmakers on Wednesday. Nikki Haley for UN Ambassador, Scott Pruitt for EPA Administrator, Wilbur Ross for Commerce Secretary, and Congressman Tom Price for Health and Human Services. What's your major takeaway from the hearings?
Well, I think generally speaking, you're going to see these Trump cabinet nominees go through. Each of them had their own little bumps in the road. But none of them had as bad of a day as Betsy DeVos, the Education Secretary nominee yesterday. None of them had as bad of a day as Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State nominee, did last week. I think almost all of the Trump nominees are going to make it. There may be a couple of cases that get a little closer. Mick Mulvaney, the OMB director nominee, may end up having some trouble over a tax issue. He apparently, in fact, acknowledged that he didn't pay taxes on a household employee from 2000 to 2004 today. So there's still some road to go for these folks, but it doesn't seem to make a lot of difference to the Republican senators whether they're having good days or bad days. I think most of this set's going to get through just simply by sheer numbers.
What about Scott Pruitt? He said climate change is not a hoax, and that puts him at odds with previous statements by President-elect Trump. What do you make of that?
President-elect Trump has actually had multiple positions on this, so no matter what Scott Pruitt had said, he would have been at odds with President-elect Trump. I think that him saying that climate change is not a hoax is something that will be reassuring, not necessarily to environmentalists on the left, but certainly to those Republicans who are concerned about the environment, that he's not somebody who is going to make an ideological push against climate change, or at least try or undermine science. Whether or not that ends up being the case is another question, but I think it'll be easier to vote for him if you're a moderate Republican by the end of that hearing than it was at the beginning.
What about Congressman Tom Price? He had to defend himself against accusations of insider trading. Now, he says his stock buys were ethical and legal, but of course Democrats brought it up over and over again. Do you think, John, that it's going to continue to haunt him?
I do, in that this is a serious issue that's been looked at before. In some cases, it's more clear than in others, where somebody had, gotten a stock tip and traded on it, or just generally speaking, members of Congress who have access to non-public information about companies making trades. In this case, he learned about a company, he said, from another congressman. There was some question from Senator Murray of Washington as to whether it was actually more of a tip to invest in that company. She said that Tom Price had said that to her behind closed doors. That's not what he was saying in public. I do think it'll continue to dog him, in part because President-elect Trump had made a promise to drain the swamp, had talked about that a lot on the campaign trail. Then again, President-elect Trump has not exactly set the bar very high for himself, so some of these things may not look as bad in context.
Well, new polling by CBS shows 56% of Americans are optimistic about the next 4 years with Donald Trump, but that's the lowest level of any president-elect polled. How do you think he addresses that?
I mean, usually there's a honeymoon period. This is a president-elect who's coming in with about a 40% approval rating. I think President Obama was at 79% before his inauguration. The good news for Donald Trump is there's almost nowhere to go but up. But I do think this is a major issue for him in being able to get things done. If his approval rating's at 40, if it starts to sink below that, I think it's going to be hard for him to force Republicans to do things that he wants to do, much less start to bring Democrats in by sheer leverage. On the other hand, if his approval ratings go up and if Democratic constituents are starting to like him, that will bring people around his agenda faster than anything. So approval rating matters a lot to a president's ability to get things done in Washington.
All right, Jon Allen, thanks so much.
Elaine, it's always my pleasure.